My guest today is Yannick Picard. It's such a pleasure to have you for this interview, Yannick. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for the invitation. It's an honor. Thank you.
Well, it's a real pleasure for me. Could you explain to people where you are, where you come from, what you do, please?
Absolutely. So I am a mindset and confidence coach, and I focus on how often self-sabotage really gets in our way of achieving what we want to get out of life. And so whether it's for me, it was avoiding. So my number one strategy was avoiding. And the way that to look at this really is that the avoidance for me was a method of protecting myself. So I used avoidance, and sometimes I would use perfectionism as another protector, because hey, if everything was perfect, then nobody could say anything bad or wrong or anything such as that about the work that I'd produce. But on the flip side, it also meant that I would often just get stuck.
Yeah, I didn't have quite the same one, but I'm very good with the controller. And the judge he loves me. I mean, I don't know even how I existed before I knew about the judge, because then I thought to myself during the Sherzad course, I thought, if the judge didn't exist, who would I be? About that good.
Yeah, and that's actually like a really, really good question, is that like the judge is really sort of like the equivalent. A lot of people like judge like is a synonym with inner critic. And it's the voice really that's in your head that basically will judge you, will judge others, or will judge circumstances. It's like, oh, why is he doing that? Or why is she doing that? Like, what is she thinking? But on the flip side, it's like, oh my God, like what was I thinking? And having like all these thoughts, and sometimes like circumstances would be like, oh, it's like the world is stacked against me, and why bother? So all these thoughts really act in a way that are rarely, if ever, beneficial. Like rarely, if ever, beneficial. And the more that you can sit still, and I know that for a lot of us, sitting still is such a challenge, because it's like we get these dopamine hits by scrolling like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. And so sitting still is something that is not something that we have a great mastery over, and all the distractions. So yeah, so if we allow ourselves to just sit still and just notice the thought, because we have like anywhere between 50,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and we just notice them as they come by. And maybe what we do is that we sort of like catch one, and then we it's just like a Chinese fortune cookie, right? We break it, and then we just read what's there, and then you say, huh, is it true? Like, is it true that by having this inner critic, this voice, the judge, tell me this, that it's beneficial to me? And I want to say that, you know what? For the greater part, it's not. But it's a thought that amongst tens of thousands that cross our mind every day, that basically will often keep us stuck, keep us away from what we want to achieve, like where we want to go.
That is for sure. With the non-ending critics, you're not good enough, you can't, you're not going to achieve this, you're not going to achieve that, you crap, or whatever. And yeah, there's no end to it. So it's very good to be aware. On that course, I really became aware of the judge, because I thought that's all I do all the time. I judge myself unless I really watch it. And then I judge everybody else for that matter, and then every single circumstances, and then I shouldn't have done this, and I shouldn't have done that like that, and it's an all complete waste of time. It's not, well, it might have protected us when we're little, but I'm not little that we're not that little any longer. So therefore, it's a complete waste of time because I'm not at the age where it's going to protect me in any way or shape. And then the other thing we have is, in fact, we have.
But Anne, I'm just going to dovetail into what you just said. And what happens, that comes around when we're very young, right? Like maybe like 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 years of age. And what happens is that, like, for a lot of us, by the time that we start to question this, it's been part of us for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so
more.
Yeah, and more. And we've gotten so accustomed to that being part of us, is that it's almost like it is part of us. We do not remember a time when it wasn't. So it's hard, it's difficult sometimes to distinguish it because we feel that it's always been one of our character traits.
So that is something, thanks to the course, I can pay attention to. I was so amazed by the amount of judge I had. I know my next one is the controller, to be sure. To be sure, I can control anything. So I can't let you near to me because you could hurt me, and I can't accept that.
Right. Yeah. And those, like I said, like the controller or any of these saboteurs were all like they're all there to act as protectors. Because as kids, like growing up, we really need it. We really need to feel safe and so on. But like if we take a look at the controller, like underneath the controller are amazing strengths. Like people who tend to be controller are typically confident, action oriented, and they're persistent. So which are all great strengths. And so it's just that over a period of time, it's almost like these strengths were taken to the nth degree and they kind of flipped. And so it's like it's the two sides of the coin, right? And so having the controller, what happens is because those strengths were taken like sort of like too far to an extreme, well, it creates like high anxiety for a lot of people who are controller. And sometimes it might be like it creates like you get impatient. And so the other thing also is that I find with people who tend to have a strong controller is that they won't admit that they will get hurt or rejected, but they do. But they'll show like this strong facade that they don't.
But it hurts.
Yeah, it stings just like anybody else. They put on this facade that no, it's okay. So
it's always fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I can manage better than you. I know better than you, and you have to do what I say. Otherwise, really, it won't be as good.
Yeah, and like oftentimes, like the controller or any of the other 9 inner saboteurs, basically, like there's always like something that happened when you grew up that basically made this like sort of like grow in strength. And so it's always interesting to be able to see like, hey, it's like, what are the circumstances that would have led to somebody having a strong controller or like a strong avoider, like keeping the peace, and so on. So it's always interesting to hear people's stories like that led them to have a controlling type. And there's nothing wrong with any of these. It's just something to be aware of, and then ask yourself, well, how is this showing up in my relationships? And like, is it an issue?
You don't want to know that. It was so bad. I couldn't have any because I couldn't let anybody near me. I was so scared of being hurt.
Yeah.
I couldn't let people near me. So there was always a barrier to protect me.
Yeah, because like possibly something in the past where, like, for example, like vulnerability might be something that you are with the controller, that you're stopping yourself from being vulnerable with other people. And so it's just, I mean, I'm going to say this word, but it might not necessarily be the best word, but it's great to know. I mean, it sucks but it's great to have the awareness, because you might not have gotten present to how how like these behaviors, like basically like how deep like the roots are. And
Oh yeah, it
once
comes from 2-year-old or something, and
yeah,
it's
and
been going on and on and on and on. And I was not able to shift it until now, where I realize what's been going on for so long. Only now, really,
yeah.
because I did other program. I did the heart maps program where you can shift from negative emotion to positive emotion really quickly, but it didn't give me I could see the recurrence happening, and how I always reacted the same way because I had no awareness of any of it. But I didn't realize I was such a controller until very lately, I must admit.
Yeah, and like for example, like for me with the avoider, like the avoider can show up no matter if you had like a great childhood or a childhood that had sort of like I guess like for lack of better words, like a conflict, right? And so if you had a happy childhood, it's possible that you just didn't learn to deal with difficult emotions.
Yeah,
For a reason. Like there's no point in discussing the reason. It is what it is. But
yeah,
on the flip side, if you had like high conflict or tension, the avoider actually comes in to play a peacemaker, because the basically like you don't want to add negativity or tension on top of whatever's going on like at the family level. And so in that case, like for me, like I could totally see that starting to show up like when my parents were arguing before they got separated. So like I'd play peacemaker, and I didn't want to add to the tensions that were already going on with the family. So yeah.
yeah, I can understand that. So that's about the saboteur. All the saboteur, it depends what happened to people at one time or another during their childhood, but it's something that they stick to for a very, very long time unless they get awareness of what it is.
Yeah.
And I would strongly suggest everybody looked into that, because it makes such a huge difference to your life and how you become. I mean, the awareness for me is really what we need, because if we have no awareness, it can go on until you die. You still don't know it happened to you.
Yeah.
So
And interestingly enough, I mean, like it doesn't matter what age you are. Like I have people that I speak with who think that because they're 70 years old, that they don't self-sabotage. And so I usually get curious. I'm like, so like, is it because you think that sort of like you're at 70 and that's why you think you don't self-sabotage? And a lot of them basically, and I said, like, well, consider for a moment that you've been doing it for so long that you don't know what it is like not to do it. And I'm not saying that you're doing it like at the power of 10, like at like extreme levels, but it's possible that you might just basically be sort of like a mid-tier, and you don't really know what life is like without it.
yeah,
And so you've been carrying this on with you for 60 or however many years, and you just don't know what life was like before that. And so it's always eye-opening to have like these types of conversation, because having these saboteurs, they're protectors. And so there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person because you scored high on, for example, a victim, or if you scored high on a hyper rational, where it's like the mind is the most important thing over emotions, or that you're a controller or an avoider. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you less worthy of being like an amazing and loving and caring human being. It just is. And it's really bringing the awareness to, okay, this is what is. It is what it is. Now, is this impacting me? And if it isn't, then okay, you know what? Great. But at least I know where this might show up. And if it is, then awesome. So what do you want to do next?
What I would like to do next is talking about the sage.
Okay. Yeah, the sage. Awesome. So the sage is really your higher self. It's a different way of saying it's your wise higher self. And so there are 5 powers of the sage. And so one is empathize, where you have unconditional love and acceptance for yourself. And you have one that is the explore power, which is really having deep curiosity and openness to possibility, like almost like being an archaeologist, like Indiana Jones, for example.
I love that.
Yeah,
they're my 2 favorites.
Oh, there you go.
Those 2.
Okay, yeah. You have the innovate power, which is developing brand new ideas or recombining ideas. And so it's just basically sort of like, hey, how do I let's think outside of the box, no wrong answers. Just as many as possible. And then once you've come up with the list, then you basically go in and say, okay, like is there any that can be combined to make them even better? Or are there any that really, you know what, going to Mars tomorrow morning? Yeah, although it's a great idea, it's not probable right now. And so we
send me a postcard from there, please.
And then you have the navigate power, which is what really allows you to almost like project yourself in the future, and from that future date, look back and say, hey, is what's really important right now? Like is this important right now? Pardon my French, but is this the one thing that I want to give a F about? And so and the answer is no, then you know that, hey, you know what, I can just sort of let that go. And it's the same thing about hey, is this thing going to matter 5 minutes from now, 5 months from now, and 5 years from now? And if the answer is no, then you know that you can kind of let it go. And the final one, the 5th one, the activate power, is really just being laser focused and moving into action. And that doesn't necessarily mean taking leaps and bounds. It could literally mean it could be just building slowly, with baby steps. But as long as you're moving, because just like a bicycle, right? If you're not pedaling, you're gonna fall over at one point. And so it's just like you just need to get a certain small momentum going when you're cycling to stay up, and then just to kind of keep going.
I like the how do you eat an elephant? One bit at a time, because otherwise you think it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the interesting thing is that as we get older, sometimes we lose some of the thinking that we had as kids. And I'll give you an example. And this is really, really silly, and it'll prove the point. So what if I told you, hey, how do you put, if I asked a 5-year-old, how do you put an elephant into a fridge? As an adult, the adult would say, elephant, fridge. The elephant can't fit in the fridge, so you can't put an elephant in the fridge. But a 5-year-old would say, you open the door to the fridge, you put the elephant in the fridge, and then you close the door.
Yeah.
And now here's the follow-up question. Then you'll ask, okay, great. So how do you put a tiger in the fridge? And then the adult will, with that reasoning, say, oh, well, you open the door to the fridge, you put the tiger in there, and then you close the door. And then the kid says, no, that's not how you do it. Like, because if you put the tiger and the elephant in the same fridge, the tiger will eat the elephant. So you need to open the door, take the elephant out, put the tiger in, and then close the door.
I love that. It's a fantastic example. But there's something about when we are kids. I mean, let's put it that way. When we learn to walk, we keep falling and we get up and do it again. And nobody kind of wonder, "Oh, maybe I can't walk. Maybe I should stop trying."
Yeah, exactly. Like, when was the last time that an 18-month-old, because they tripped, like standing up like 3 times in a row, said, "Hey, you know what? This walking thing's just not for me. I'm tapping out." Never. It doesn't happen. But as adults, we do that, the equivalent of that, all the time.
All the time, yeah. Now, it is so fascinating. And it is fascinating how, as we grow up, we lose so much of our curiosity and what we can think is possible.
Yeah.
Because you don't question. When you're a kid, you don't question. You just go and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's so different. But then if you say to people now, they'll just go and do it, they think you're a nutter.
Yeah, but what happens is that they carry their past and they put it in their future.
Yeah.
And so basically, yeah, so it's like they'll put the past basically goes into their future, and that's because they can't do it because of something that's in the past. Whereas as a kid, like the kid doesn't do that because like they don't have those memories formed, and which basically, like for a lot of us, almost act as a ball and chain, or as chains, and keep us basically sort of like tied up and stuck.
Yeah, we get completely stuck. We have nothing in our environment that help us to understand all that, because I think whatever you have with the schools, or if you go to uni or whatever you're going to do, we all have to fit in little boxes. And if you this, then you are that. It's like when you ask people, who are you? I mean, me, you would have said, who am I? And I would say, I'm a pilot. No, I'm me. I'm not a pilot. I do piloting as a job, but that is not who I am. And we don't understand very well who we are because we're being put in boxes all the time, and everything goes in a little box, and we have to fit in that box to go and do X, Y, Z. So it's not helping anybody, put it that way, I think.
No, and I mean, like, I think that we could probably do with one less calculus class and one more personal development class. But
yeah.
You know what? Like, I think that
I think everybody needs to do development class, because that's the one thing we don't know. Actually, when we go to school, my view, and that's only my view, it's nobody else's view, I don't think we learn anything we need. I think kids now, they don't learn to cook. So if you ask them, could you cook? They say, oh, we take a ready meal from the supermarket and it goes in a microwave or whatever. They have no idea about anything. I had a friend, he had a kid that was living in London, and in my garden I had an apple tree with thousands of apples. And he said, he took some picture. I said, do you mind if I take some apples from the tree for my kid? Because he thinks it comes in a supermarket.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they live in town and they haven't seen a garden and they haven't seen a tree, whatever it is. So now they see all the kids with their phone. Me, I giggle because I'm well past the age of the phone. So I never had that when I was a kid. I had a phone plugged into the wall, and if people wanted something, they would leave you a message and you would see the message when you came home. Mm-hmm. It was not a problem. But there's very good things with having the internet and all that, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to do this interview.
Right.
So there's good and bad everywhere.
Absolutely.
I'm pleased I don't have any kids. I would have the fight of the mobile phone and take it away from them and say, when we're having dinner, we don't have the mobile phone on. But that's me. Whether I'm right or not, I'm right for me.
Your judge would come in and say, "Oh my God, like what are they like? Why are they on their phone?" Judging them, and then you basically reverse it back. It's like, wow, like why can't I be a better mom and have taught them like not to use their phones at the dinner table? And then it's like, what's the world like? What are they teaching them in school?
So, what do you think this positive intelligence course would bring to people?
I think that at minimum, it just brings awareness, and it allows you to see things that are likely to be hiding in a blind spot. And it's also another way of empowering yourself, because you don't know what you don't know. And if it's a hiding in your blind spot and you don't have somebody reflecting it back to you, then how do you know that, hey, this avoiding tendency comes from the fact that I saw my parents arguing and then they got separated and I basically decided to play the piece, and that's how the avoider came about. But the avoider is also what kept me from walking up to like a handsome guy and asking him out on a date.
That's for sure. So would you advocate to people to do that course to become more aware of who they are?
I'd say to be more aware of how they might be self-sabotaging and to what extent. Like how their protectors are although they're doing their great job, they're keeping them safe, but also how they're preventing them from playing life all out.
Real life, as opposed to go and hide and pretend it never happened, because it could be dangerous.
Exactly.
So, do you think it changed their belief and their perceptions? Yeah. And that is indispensable to move on in life, as you say, real life. If we can't change our belief and our perception, the reality is through every 10 years, etc., we have complete transition. We change. I'm not the same at 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, nor are you, nor anybody else. So we have to keep moving on. And we got completely different way of looking at things. Me, I see there was somebody posting about, are you really looking after your health really well? And those guys, but they're 30, 35, they say, I mean, they're immortal. When I was 35, I was immortal. That was before anything happened to me. I couldn't even comprehend that it could happen to me. It didn't occur. And then by the time you get to 60 and you got a problem, then you think, oh, maybe I could have done something a bit before. Well, and then you become interested.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. It doesn't matter how old you are today. It's like there's a Japanese proverb that says, like, hey, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today.
Yeah, for sure. But I can understand why they feel that way and why they think it's not important, because when you're immortal, you don't see that as something important. And then when you start having problems, you start thinking, oh dear, maybe one day I'm going to pass away like everybody else. I mean, that's something I'm happy with now. I mean, I came to terms that one day I will pass away, and that's the way. Why does everybody say that it's so wonderful to be born, and we all celebrate, and it's so dreadful to die. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's dreadful to be born, and maybe it's wonderful to die. I don't know. It's just a question.
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, like, I would think that there are many reasons to celebrate both. So the birth is bringing like someone new into this world and all the possibilities that exist for that child. And dying is celebrating. It's like, hey, it's like everything that has been done. Actually, you know what? The more that I think about this, I could see why certain people might think that like the that dying the end might they might not necessarily feel joyous, because they might realize that, hey, you know what? I was so busy getting my own way that I didn't actually live. And maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's something I think that is very important, is when you come to the end of your life, you're happy to have achieved what you wanted to achieve or what we came here to achieve. That slowly develops as we age. We want to achieve more different things, not more, but different things are more important suddenly. So, yeah, I think that it's lovely to be able to die thinking, I've done what I came here to do, and just go peacefully, happily, having had a good life. So, what else would you say to people who would like to learn that simple regulation of knowing how to master your saboteur and building the muscle of being more and more sage? Because the
Yes.
more we work at it,
Yeah, so you can't change what you don't know. So the first thing I'd say is go do the free assessment. There's a 50 question assessment that takes, I don't know, I think it was like 8 minutes to take, and then you get your emails result with hey, it's like what the lay of the land, like where am I at, like what's showing up for me. And then after that, it's noticing, okay, so like if you have like avoider or controller or victim or pleaser or whatnot, like notice when that shows up. So if you take pleaser, like, okay, so like what, like why do I feel the need to always please? Like what's the story? What's the myth that I'm believing around like my need to please everyone and putting everyone in front of like their needs in front of mine? Like what's the benefit of me not having boundaries? And just really getting present to like how these protectors, although like at the core want to keep you safe, how they're really like in your adult life, like no longer required, but they're just around because they've been around for so long. And then once you get to do that, then you start to ask yourself, like you use discernment, ask yourself, like, is this true? Like, is this accurate? And oftentimes what I find is by, for example, like using empathy, like empathizing with yourself for, hey, you know what, like, yeah, this is what's been going on for the last, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so now that I know, and I realize the impact, then I want to do something differently. But sometimes we need to have empathy for ourselves, for our way of being, and not judge ourselves and not be harsh or critical about what happened before. And the other one is, hey, like being willing to take risks. And I don't mean like really like extreme risks, but I'm saying, hey, it's like, what if like you just basically, for if you're a pleaser, what if you put boundaries, like exploring putting boundaries, and it doesn't have to go from zero to extreme. You can basically, so it's almost like a volume knob, right? You can turn it a little bit and then you get to 5, and then it's like, okay, like nothing happened, great, so at least I've got like 5%. And then you can, like, next time you get to 10 or 15, and then you just kind of play with it. And that's kind of like how you get to weaken like a saboteur, because like it's really just a dance, and you just need to fine tune it and be willing to explore different things different ways. And what that does is that, like, once you're willing to look at things differently and try different things, then like a lot of stuff actually really opens up for you. It's like, oh, I'm more willing to do that. Or it's like, hey, it's like I've been able to put in boundaries with like a close friend. So let me employ a similar method with I don't know, like with my mother or with my family members. And okay, well, that's done. It's like, okay, well, let me do that with my employer. And so you don't have to go like from 0 to 100 with everyone overnight. You can kind of like test it out and just play with it, and then sort of like copy and paste into other areas of your life. But I think that the great thing is that at the end is looking at the navigate power and just like projecting yourself at the end. It's like, hey, if I continue with, for example, people pleasing, and I know that it's costing me this. Well, if I project myself like into the future, what really matters right now? Like, why am I so attached to keeping this friendship intact, which it might be dysfunctional, but you're keeping it alive because of your pleaser tendencies. And so it's having the courage and the willingness to try different things, just to make small shifts, and then just seeing sort of like how the dust settles, and then everything okay, great, keep going. It didn't go great, well, okay, so different strategy.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely super. What I can see is the people you see, the people I see anyway, as I change, tends to shift. Not all, of course, but some of them tend to shift because they don't really want to. They want you as the old body you used to be, and they don't want you to change because it's disturbing them because they're not changing, and it creates a shift.
Yeah, it was dysfunctional, and so what you're trying to do is bring more balance. And if by bringing more balance it means an end of a dysfunctional like relationship, and I use that very very loosely, it could be friendship, like,
Yeah, yeah,
and but if then consider that, you know what, no longer having that person in your life is actually a benefit.
definitely. It makes such a big difference. Um, I had a friend, he was saying, you always have to know, you have to have a circle of six. That's his way of looking at it. And what is his circle of six? This is the six people that do support you and for what you want to become.
Mm.
And he said, if I had to have my parachute put together by somebody, I would take one of my circle of six, because for the others, I don't know what's going to happen. I wouldn't let them.
Yeah, 100%, because like you want to be able to trust these individuals, right? And there's no jealousy, you're all each other's cheerleaders. And consider that, hey, it's like, you know what? If you don't win, then I don't win mentality. So like, and when I was doing coaching, when I'm doing coaching, and oftentimes it's like I'll be like, okay, you know what? Like I want you to win. So because if you don't win, then that means that I'm not winning. So what do I need to do? Who do I need to become to get you to win that game, or get that or achieve that goal? And it's the same thing that you want from the group that you just shared, is that like you're all cheering each other on, supporting each other. There's no jealousy. And like you would basically, like, everybody in that group would be comfortable in having anyone else in that group pack their parachute.
Yeah, definitely. That makes such a difference. Well, Yannick, this is a great interview. Thank you so much. Could you let people know where they can find you? Because he's been my coach too, and I definitely recommend him as a coach. So if you could let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne. It really was a privilege, and I had a lot of fun coaching you. The best way actually to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. So my name is Yannick Picard, and I'm on LinkedIn, or you can find me on Instagram. And on Instagram, my handle is The Naked Coach. And so yeah, so that you can find me on Instagram or on LinkedIn. And if you're getting to this interview and you're reaching out based on this interview, I'd love for you to say that in the message that you send me, so that I just get a sense of how you found me.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Thank you so much, Yannick. It's been a real pleasure. I'm so happy you came on board to do this interview with me. And thank you very much.
Okay.